In traditional tokenomics, capital generates capital. You park a principal asset in a protocol, and it emits a continuous stream of identical assets. Standard ERC-20 staking tokens operate strictly on this compounding yield model. The output is purely financial. Venice's DIEM token deviates from this standard model entirely. Instead of compounding financial returns, DIEM intercepts the yield generated by your staked principal and converts it directly into raw, actionable compute power. The exact output parameter is fixed. Staking 1 DIEM guarantees $1 per day in API inference credit. That credit accesses Venice's full model catalog, from Llama to Stable Diffusion. This credit resets at midnight. It does not roll over. DIEM functions as a static stock producing a daily yield, rather than a consumable flow of tokens that you burn. To understand how this works in practice, we must deconstruct the minting pipeline, map the specific mathematical curve, and expose the structural collateral trap. DIEM introduces a new primitive in decentralized AI infrastructure, the conversion of staked capital into a permanent tradable compute annuity. This flowchart tracks the sequential pipeline required to move from the base VVV token to active DIEM inference credit. Step 1 requires acquiring VVV on a decentralized exchange. Step 2 is standard staking. You lock your VVV to earn emissions, generating the sVVV receipt token. Step 3 initiates a liquidity lock, not a capital sacrifice. You move your sVVV into an escrow contract to mint DIEM. The principal sVVV is not spent. It is held against the new asset. While your collateral sits in that escrow box, the underlying staking yield splits. 80% continues routing to your wallet. The remaining 20% is diverted to Venice as protocol revenue. This entire mechanism is reversible. Burning the minted DIEM immediately triggers the contract to unlock and return the original sVVV collateral. Step 4 activates the utility. An unstaked DIEM earns nothing. You must stake the minted DIEM on Venice to generate the daily $1 compute credit. Unlike a direct purchase where cash leaves your possession, this multi-step escrow ensures the user retains full price exposure to the underlying principal. By design, this architecture physically removes VVV from the circulating supply for the entire duration of the lock. As demand for DIEM scales, the contractionary force on VVV increases in lockstep. Minting DIEM is functionally a yield share agreement collateralized by illiquid VVV. It is not a conventional token swap. The specific amount of sVVV you are required to lock in order to mint a single DIEM is known as the mint rate. This lock requirement is not fixed, nor does it scale linearly. It is governed by a mathematical curve anchored to an off-chain target supply parameter of 38,000 DAI. This mathematical graph plots the bonding curve. The protocol calculates the lock requirement using this exact equation. The formula multiplies a baseline of 90 sVVV by Euler's number, raised to the power of 2, times the supply over target ratio, cubed. That cubed ratio means the curve stays relatively flat early on, but violently accelerates as the circulating supply approaches the target. The current coordinate on the curve sits completely past the 38,000 threshold. Because supply has exceeded the target, the requirement has spiked to roughly 685 sVVV per DAI. The math here is aggressive. Moving the supply just 0.5% past the target forces the collateral requirement up by 3%. Venice does not publish historical execution data for this curve. We reconstructed the week-by-week trajectory entirely by scraping the on-chain event logs. You can verify this live tracking data exclusively at ownyourmind.ai/projects/Venice/DIEM. The macro effect of this math creates an aggressive contractionary flywheel. Every new mint makes the next mint exponentially more expensive in collateral terms, systematically vacuuming VVV out of the market. As a result, 8.26 million VVV currently sits locked in escrow. That represents roughly 7% of the total token supply. However, this flywheel is highly elastic. If users execute mass burn events to retrieve their principal, the lock rapidly unwinds, dumping that VVV straight back into circulation. The cubic exponential formula guarantees an extreme liquidity squeeze on the base token. It heavily penalizes late minters, who need massive collateral, while fiercely protecting the early adopters who minted flat on the curve. This matrix table maps DIEM against the three dominant models of decentralized AI tokenomics, illustrating its mechanical efficiency. Comparing DIEM to Morpheus, both protocols preserve your principal, but where Morpheus diverts 100% of your staked ETH yield to the protocol, DIEM only takes 20% of your sVVV yield. Bittensor operates purely on emissions yield. You stake tau for more tau, but the position carries absolutely no attached compute access or product utility. Akash utilizes a consumable flow-through mechanism. You pay with ACT tokens for compute time, and the token is permanently destroyed in the process. DIEM occupies the most mechanically illiquid niche in the sector. It bundles continuous yield generation and daily product access into a single principal-backed position. Analyzing the strict on-chain mechanics is only half the equation. The underlying economic parameters are managed entirely off-chain by the Venice Corporation. The first critical vulnerability is the 38,000 target supply parameter. That variable lives on an off-chain server. It is not governed by a smart contract. Venice can unilaterally alter this target at any time. Increasing the cap instantly flattens the bonding curve and dilutes the scarcity value for every early minter, requiring 0 on-chain governance votes. The second centralization risk lies in the credit itself. There is absolutely no on-chain pricing protection for the nominal $1 inference allocation. As frontier AI models require more compute power to run, Venice can simply adjust their internal pricing tiers. If costs go up, your daily dollar buys fewer tokens, silently debasing the purchasing power of your credit. Despite rigorous on-chain minting mathematics, DIEM's long-term utility operates entirely on corporate trust, rather than cryptographic immutability. DIEM has an active secondary market. It currently trades on Aerodrome and Coinbase for roughly $1,082. Path A is straightforward. Buy DIEM directly on the open market. This is a pure cash capital expenditure. At current API rates, the compute credit pays for itself in roughly 3 years. Path B is the escrow route. You post sVVV collateral, mint a DIEM, and hold it. The critical failure point occurs when a minter uses Path B to lock collateral, but then sells their newly minted DIEM on the secondary market for cash. The testy escrow contract only unlocks when a DIEM is burned. The user has physically disconnected themselves from their own collateral. The mathematical reality is absolute. To retrieve their locked sVVV, they must now buy a DIEM back off the open market. By selling their minted token, the user has structurally shorted DIEM against their own locked collateral. This creates unbounded risk. If new use cases spike inference demand and DIEM's secondary market price runs to $3,000, the cost to unlock the user's collateral triples. Treating the lock requirement merely as a cost basis completely blinds investors to this specific collateralized debt exposure. Minting and then immediately selling is not a standard yield strategy. It is a severe financial trap that punishes liquidity seekers with a violent short squeeze. DIEM brilliantly engineers staking yield into a principal-preserving compute annuity, but the architecture masks significant off-ramping hazards. Participants must accurately model both the mathematical severity of the bonding curve and the secondary market squeeze risks before locking any capital. This independent DAI infrastructure analysis is provided by Own Your Mind at ownyourmind.ai, with no sponsors. You must evaluate the network capacity, watch the target supply parameters, and relentlessly scrutinize the underlying mechanical architecture.